Join thousands of NFT traders who already start their day on CryptoSlam.
It's game on for GameFi as billions of dollars are riding on the future of electronic gaming. As the industry gets more crowded, what does it take to rise above the rest and attract new players?
I think that we have to go back to basics for games. Games have to be primarily fun, then you earn. When you flip that, then what you're attracting is you're attracting speculators, right? And they are not gamers by nature.
And what are institutional investors betting on when they invest in crypto games? Coming up, Word on the Block on location with Wui Ngiap Foo, CEO and co-founder of Singapore-based GameFi startup Ethlas, joining in to dive deep into those topics and a whole lot more. Did you know that 1 in 3 people in the world are gamers, and the gaming industry is set to hit $200 billion in revenue by 2024? And yet only a fraction of these gamers are in Web 3.0 gaming. So where are they and when are they coming? Welcome to Word on the Block, the series that takes a deeper dive into blockchain and all the emerging technologies that shape our world at the intersection of business, politics, and economy. It's what we cover right here on Forkast.News. I'm Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. Well, today we are in conversation with Wui Ngiap Foo. He is CEO and co-founder of the gaming venture Athleus, which just got its start a few months ago. And welcome to the show. It is great to see you. It's a really interesting time to sit down with you. You are a former head of technology for a decacorn, as they say in the biz, for Grab here in Singapore. And now you're doing something very different.
A little bit.
Very different. A little different.
Yeah.
Still in technology, but certainly in the future. Tell us what you're doing.
Thank you, Angie, for the introductions. What we're doing is we're trying to build a layer 0 for games in the future, right? And I say future because games have existed for decades, right? And there are many, many very popular and very great studios. The difference, though, is they have never been able to crack 2 things, right? The first is, how do you marry the financial aspects into the economy, right? Most of the games are standalone games. Their economy is contained. When you earn something in game, it's not liquid, right? It's not cash, right? It's just tokens, like virtual things. And DeFi or crypto, when it meets games, it suddenly unlocks this capability, right? And I'll talk a little bit more about it as we go through the interview. The second thing is interoperability. And this is something that I'm particularly passionate about. So as a gamer, like let's say you invest 4 years of your life in a game, let's call it Clash of Clans, right? And you get really good at it. And one day you decide, hey, look, I kind of like to play, Candy Crush these days, right? What happens to everything in there? You lose everything, right? You start from scratch. And that's because assets are not interoperable. Right? And this is one of the biggest pet peeve of any gamers out there. Just go, what if levels, experience, items, rare things that I own in one game
can be transferred?
Exactly, right? And that is why I think that the future of gaming is actually really, really bright, and that the concept of blockchain meets games meets finance, when you mash that together, it could be the start of a new digital economy.
And we call this space GameFi, and it is getting to be a very crowded space. What makes you different? What's the thesis that differentiates what you're doing at Athleus versus kind of the decimated, environment that we see in Axie Infinity and others?
Right. So it's 2 things in my mind, right? If you draw sort of an X and Y axis, the first one is whether you're building a single title game or you're building a platform, right? A single title game would be an Axie Infinity. A platform would be something closer to a Roblox, right? Or a Steam, right? And we are closer to the platform angle. And a lot of that builds on the marketplace builder experience that myself and my co-founders have had through the years, right? We came from large consumer tax. We know how to build platforms. We know how to build marketplaces, right? So that's one. The second axis is it free to play or is it pay to play, right? And it sounds trivial, but I want to bring us back to the history of games. If all of you remember sort of how games or even just movies started, right? It was always paywalled at the start, right? You want to watch a movie, right? You want to watch Matrix. They'll say, okay, go rent it off Blockbuster, right? Or if you want to play a game, they'll say, go buy the CDs, right? I remember when I was young, you wanted to play a game called StarCraft, which was the hottest game. They'll be like, no, nobody can play unless you go pay $40 to buy the CDs, right? And then games discovered this very simple yet powerful tool. They said, what if games were free? But eventually, if they like what they see, if they're having fun, you give them in-game purchases, right? You tell your loyal supporters that if they like what they're playing, if they want to support the developers, if they want to sort of get cute skins and digital goods, go pay inside the game. But we will not block you having your first experience at the get-go. So this transition from free to pay to play to free to play was what really unlocked the gaming market to the size it is today, right? There's like 2.5 billion gamers today. And it's because most people actually don't want to pay upfront fees. They just go, let me experience what you're talking about. Let me have fun. Then let's talk about the money, right? And people do like that concept, right? The problem with the current generation of GameFis is that they are trying to do what games in the Web 2 world have learned won't scale, right? Which is they try to make you spend before you play, right? So if you think about titles like Star Atlas or Axie Infinity or Pegasus, what is the first prerequisite?
You have to buy to play,
Exactly.
pay to play.
Correct. You have to
Play to
buy
earn.
something. Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course they would say, oh, this is because the economics have to make sense, right? That you gotta, if you want to earn, you gotta sort of pay money first.
But inherently, that has been the criticism of projects like Axie Infinity. This kind of allegation of a Ponzi scheme structure where you have to pay in before, the other players who have been there originally get the earn out. That structure is changing. Obviously, it has to, but that's the criticism of a lot of these type of structured games.
Also, you create this walled garden where you don't attract the masses, right? So if you took every single GameFi out there and you summed up its users, it is about 40 million people, right? Not a small amount, but not great, right? But if you think about how many gamers are there in the Web 2 world, the real world, it's 2.5 billion.
Yeah.
Right. So it's always something that I like to talk to my team, to our strategists about, which is I call this the mystery of the missing gamers. Right.
Yeah.
Where is the other 2.4 billion people?
The migration is not happening.
Correct.
But one of the big things that we're also observing is that it's almost like the OGs in the Web 2 space, they want to preserve their status there. They don't want to get into the NFTs. In fact, that they have pushed back against a lot of these gaming companies that have said, let's do an NFT, let's launch this, let's launch that. And the backlash from their own gamers were phenomenal.
Indeed. And I would say this. At the end of the day, consumer companies follow what their consumers want, right? At some point, if enough people who play World of Warcraft tell Blizzard they want an NFT version, Blizzard will give them an NFT version, right? The reason why there's so much backlash is because the consumers don't want to play Axie, right? The problem is if you took the money away from GameFi today, would people still play it? And I think that is the uncomfortable elephant in the room
What's
question.
the answer in your view?
The answer is no. People, if there was no money to be earned, people will not play the current breed of games on GameFi. And it's no criticism to them. Right? I think a lot of them are peers, are good friends. I actually deeply respect what they've built.
So what you're saying is the value proposition is the money, not necessarily the fun game.
It is not the fun. They have not cracked fun. And in my mind, fun is 4 things, right? Fun is achieving. You're able to achieve complex puzzles, get badges. It is socializing, that people have fun engaging and building communities. It is killing, PvP, feeling that you're better than somebody else. And that, I think, a lot of the Web3 games do quite well. And the last bit is exploring, right? And most of the case, games in the GameFi space have not cracked this code. Games in the Web 2 space have, right? Think of Legends of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, right? It's an immersive open space. You can talk to people, you can trade. There's an intricate economy. People go there because they're having fun, not because they're paid to play, right? And so I think that earning as a concept for gamers, for the digital economy, is a good one. It's a powerful one. But it cannot be the be all and end all. I know a guy who is on level 28,000 on Candy Crush. I don't know how many years he has spent on it, but let's just say...
I didn't even know there was a level 28,000.
There was. And let's just say that the reason he's spending all that time is not because Candy Crush is paying him 20 cents a day, right? So I think that we have to go back to basics for games. Games have to be primarily fun, then you earn. When you flip that, then what you're attracting is you're attracting speculators, right? And they are not gamers by nature.
So when we come back, why this former head of technology at Decacorn Grab, based here in Singapore, is going to transfer that passion and knowledge into the GameFi space, and what kind of insights can we learn when we come back? After the break, how did Athles' first digital game come about?
And one day the game crashed because it was never our bread and butter, right? And people pinged us and they were like, hey, look, is the game coming back up, right? If there are people pinging you about a product that is pre-launch and there's demand for it, maybe there's something, right?
And later, why is Asia turning out to be the center of gaming innovation and tech? When Word on the Block returns. Welcome back to Word on the Block. We are sitting down with Wui Ngiap Foo, CEO and co-founder of gaming Web3. What do you want to call it? Athleus. And why did you call it Athleus, actually?
Great question. My co-founder, who's also my brother, named it actually. So Athleus is actually a merge of two words, right? Ethereum, because we are built on the Ethereum protocol, actually a derivative of the Ethereum protocol, but still EVM compatible, and Athleus, meaning a space, a world, and we merged that. We wanted to build a world of worlds, right? So that's kind of where the name derived from.
A world of worlds. And what does your mother think that both of you are neither doctors or lawyers, and both of you are in gaming? I mean, I'm teasing you a little bit, but it's the Asian, Asian parents, expectation.
My mom did call my sister up when she heard that I was quitting my job, and she's like, I don't know what he's doing, but are you sure?
Are you sure? She didn't call you up?
She did call, because I've always sort of followed my heart, right? Funny story, when I was in college, there was this point where I almost quit college, right? I was quite obsessed with this game called Dota 2. It's very big in the region. And me and my crew, it's a 5v5, right? And me and my crew were actually really good at it, right? And we always sort of go, what if we went pro, right? The world's our oyster. And so we actually talked ourselves into almost quitting school. We were like, you know what? We're going to join this Singapore qualification for the global tournaments. We're going to kill it, and we're just going to quit our school. Because who wants to go to school, right? The future is in gaming. And let's just say that I went to that tournament, and we got our ass handed to us, right? Multiple times, in fact. They were just people with just better instincts, better reaction times, younger, more dedicated. And we came back very dejected, right? We were just like, oh man. And so we continued our studies. And here I am in a technology role. But all things considered, probably would have been, it was a better outcome for me than the alternative. So that's kind of a little story about myself. But I've always sort of build something and do great things, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, what drives me is creating an impact, right? Creating a lasting legacy. The same reason I joined Google, the same reason I joined Grab. And so when I thought about what I wanted to do next, it was two things, right? Number one, I spent 7 years at Grab. It was a great run, a great chapter. The company IPO'd, and I felt like I needed to go back to my roots. And some of my roots was even this pre-Grab. I always told myself I'm going to build a startup one day, right? Wasn't sure what, but I'm going to do something, right? The second is a little bit more personal. A good friend of mine who worked with me at Grab for many years, he passed away from cancer, right? And it really sort of hit me from a sort of a how mortal we all are, right? And I just go, I'm not getting any younger. It's been a good run. If you're going to do anything, you should do it now or you should do it soon, right? And incidentally, GameFi at that time really blew up, and we didn't actually go in wanting to do games. Yeah. Here's the funny story. Initially, Athleus was actually supposed to be a DeFi platform. We were actually going to do loans, like loans for like the underprivileged students. And we had a pool set up. We had all the yield farming mechanics set up, and we realized that it wasn't number one sustainable unit economics, and number two, we weren't really feeling it, right? And so what happened was, in our free time while we were jamming about how could we sort of make that idea better, my brother actually sort of created a little game on a website, and it was just for us to sort of just take a break, right? Every time we're working hard on something, and suddenly we realized that people were playing that game that we didn't know who they were, right? It was just a public website. People found it, right? And one day the game crashed because it was never our bread and butter, right? And people pinged us and they were like, "Hey, look, it's a game coming back up, right?" And these were like hyper casual games. In fact, if you go to Ethlas, that game still exists. Yeah, it's a game called 2048. It's a little game where you just get the blocks to merge together, and at that point, my brother was just like, wait a minute, right? Like if
something's happening.
Exactly. If there are people pinging you about a product that is pre-launch and there's demand for it, maybe there's something, right? And as we dug into it, we realized that there was this whole GameFi scene going on. Not exactly what we were trying to build, because we took a very big bet on things like platforms, on things like hyper casual games, on things like the next billion users. But it was all sort of in the same sort of, if you sort of squint, loosely in the same category of going, take games, take blockchain and mash it up, right?
Yeah.
And so for us, what Athleus became was, we were convinced that there was this one single and simple mission statement we wanted to achieve, right? Which is, we wanted to use games to onboard the next billion users into crypto. Right, and that's because we just felt that there was just so few legitimate gamers on crypto, and more importantly, there were just so few people. Full stop. Right, just to quote a stat, all of blockchain combined has 340 million people. Right, and that's less than 1% of the global human population. And as somebody who has scaled apps to hundreds of millions and billions of people, I understood why it's important for disruptive technologies to have mass market adoption. Because technology ring-fenced or siloed to only a small amount of people is not disruptive, right? Disruption, think about the internet, think about electricity, think about railroads. They only became valuable when the mass market could consume them in bite-sized ways.
What's interesting is the transfer of knowledge that you have in the Southeast market, what people actually want when they want to experience something that they want to get on their phone or or online. How do you transfer the knowledge that you've had as former head of technology at Grab to what you're doing today?
Great question. So there are some key lessons or key big bets we're taking in how we're structuring Athleus that is very deviant from how GameFis think about things today, right? So, for example, our main population on Athleus today is Brazil, followed by India, followed by the Philippines, and they all share this sort of mass market, emerging economy, and huge potential kind of demographics, right? And so the first thing we did for Athleus is we said, we're not going to launch an app, okay? Which, would shock many people, right? We are 100% browser-based, through technology, and just a familiarity with the Chromium stack. We said, if you're going to get 1 billion people, they don't want to download something, right? They kind of want to be able to play, they want to immerse, and maybe eventually they want an app, but not in their first entry point, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing we did was we said, every good thing that has happened to humanity has to have some free element, right? If you want mass market, you have to render a service or value add, but not charge for it. And so we set ourselves up to be free to play. And this was back in December, right? Where every game was going, I will sell you an NFT before you can enter my ecosystem, right? And the third thing that we learned from just experiences in Grab and all is, how do you think about things that you and I may not care about, but the average mass market consumer may, right? So for example, not everyone has an iPhone, right? If you are in Brazil and you're catering to the mass market, Android phones are the dominant phone, right? Performance is a thing, storage space is a thing, right? And so how we optimize our app, how we think about latencies, even what kind of games, right? Instead of building a AAA title where you make someone sit in front of a desktop and grind for 4 hours, we said, we are going to augment your human experience, right? We're going to fill up the moments in between. So imagine if you are a delivery driver waiting for an order at Din Tai Fung, right? It's a 2-hour queue. You would maybe be browsing TikTok. Now you can just play Athleus and maybe earn $1 or $2, right? Let's say you're a student waiting for your bus, right? Fill up the moments in between. Let's say you are a housewife just going, look, I could be playing Candy Crush, or I could be playing a version of Candy Crush where it's fun, it's social, but it exposes me to crypto and tokens, and I learn a little bit about that. And that's kind of like our value prop, right? We deeply understand the fact that people don't want to change their lives 180 before they embrace a piece of technology. They want the technology to blend into their lives. They see the value of it, then they say, okay, give me more of that, right? What more do I need to do? Do I need to create a wallet? Do I need to figure out how to go to an exchange to change the tokens? But don't front load that, right? And so a lot of like the thesis and the mental models that we put into Athleus is fundamentally driven by this idea that we understand what 1 billion people would like, right?
Yeah. So for those who are watching right now, we're in Singapore. What is so different from Southeast Asia and understanding the market that is going to potentially set this region apart, especially for startups who understand this space versus maybe a Europe or a US?
I think it's the fact that we're just close to a lot of high potential markets, right? If you looked at a stat that I like to quote a lot, if you looked at the top 10 countries with MetaMask adoption, Southeast Asia is 4 of the top 10, right? And it's mind-blowing, right? Because it's just like, you would think like, it would be America and Canada and France, right? But it's not, right? It's like, Vietnam and Philippines and Indonesia. And I think it's just because when societies are growing and they're sort of forming their path to what it means to be a prosperous community, they just more receptive towards adopting new technologies, right? And so a lot of what we do in the region is just inherently scalable outside, right? Give you an example. We targeted the Filipino community because we knew the Filipino community, they're also very big in the GameFi scene. And we said, let's build communities for them. Let's build games that they like and all. And this was sort of 3 months back, right? And all of a sudden we realized that people in Brazil were playing our games even though they don't speak English. And they were just going, it's not that I can understand exactly every word that's happening, but the lowest common denominator that you've built into the games, right? Ease of use, just intuition, the kind of games that appeal to Filipino communities, that is just transferable to like the mass market in Brazil. And so we built up a huge Portuguese community, even though I have no idea how to speak Portuguese. But we were super proud of our Brazilian community, right? But it was that organic, right? And so we were just like, when you build great products, you don't even have to speak the language, right? Everybody is speaking the same language of ease of use, of crypto.
It's the Tower of Babel moment for GameFi.
It is a little bit of that.
It is the universal language that transcends language. So when we come back, what are the big bets that potentially institutional players are making in the space, as well as retail players, when Word on the Block returns? On the other side, is Web3 making Silicon Valley irrelevant? More when we come back.
If you don't understand the future, you'll never see your place in it. Introducing Forkast Plus, covering all things blockchain, independent reporting, insights, and access from Asia to the world. We cut through the noise where technology, insights, and access meet, where smart conversations happen. Make friends with disruption. Forkast Plus.
Welcome back to Word on the Block. All right, institutionals are coming into this space. There's some big time investors who believe in Athleus, but they're also making a bet on this region and here in Asia. Why do you think that is?
I think it's a couple of reasons, right? Number one is the tech scene, the technology scene in Southeast Asia, I feel is really frothy, right? There's far more talent in the region than there was when I first started at Grab 7 years ago. There are far more startups that are starting, and more importantly, people are recognizing that in the past, if you had a very brilliant Singaporean data scientist or a very brilliant Vietnamese engineer, they would just go to the valley. But now they're going, hey, you know what? I like my region, my family's here, and maybe I want to do a startup here or join a startup here, right? And I think all of that coalesce into this perfect moment of going, this is going to be like the Silicon Valley of the 80s, but for Southeast Asia and Asia, right? And I think Beijing got that moment with the rise of the BATs, right? And obviously the Valley has just been well known for startups, but I think innovation is hitting, and capital is hitting, and talent is hitting, right? And that's what's happening.
What are you hearing from your investors and Sequoias in who else who are circling this space that you've been tapped with capital? And what are they exploring?
So our lead investors include Sequoia, include Dragonfly Capital, include Makers Fund. They are very trusted partners. We are very blessed to have them on our cap table. On top of that, there are actually quite a lot of players who are interested in the space, right? We are speaking to everything from sovereign funds to Web3 VCs to gaming funds, to even conversations with certain, and I cannot disclose, but like certain government-linked companies, right? Who go, hey, look, we take an active, we like how you guys take an active role in promoting Singapore as a HQ, right? We like you taking an active role of saying you don't have to go to the Valley to build a respectable startup. What can we do to help, right? Is it capital? Is it strategic collabs? Is it partnership? And so I actually think that Web3 for the first time is not Valley-centric, right? Not like, there were many waves of technology disruption where it was always like, come to where the action is, right? But if you look at Web3, where is the action? It's in Lisbon, Portugal. It's in Dubai. It's in Singapore. And it's some of it's in India and China, right? And I actually think that the decentralization nature of Web3 actually really spilled over into the real world, right? People are just going, we can build companies anywhere. And they do, right? And I think that's pretty cool.
Not only is it pretty cool, it really represents the next phase of growth. There is, as you've said, this brilliant moment that coalesces so many things. You have emerging markets, you have emerging developing nations that are seeing technology as a leapfrog moment. And then on the other end of it, you have a lot of capital looking for growth. And if you're going to achieve 1 billion people and find those missing gamers from 2.5 billion to 40 million, there's a lot of upside here.
There is.
It's this moment. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think your mother can be proud of you both, even if you're not a doctor or a lawyer.
Thank you. She has a lot of concentration risks in the family right now. But, as the DGen say, we are all going to make it.
We're all going to make it. And thanks for making it. And thank you, everyone, for making it to this latest episode of Word on the Block. I'm Angie Lau, Editor-in-Chief of Forkast. Until the next time.